the DHK Evening News with Ivan Leung.
It's 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Evening News. I'm Ivan Leung. The chairman of New World Land, Henry Cheng, and executive director Stuart Leung are testifying before an electrical select committee investigate the developer hire of a former housing chief, Leung. Earlier, a pair had taken a committee to the court to challenge its power to summons witnesses. However, the High Court ruled last month that the committee did not have power to question them. Mr. Cheng and Leung has lodged an appeal, but still agreed to attend today's meeting. The height of a controversial commercial development on reclaimed land in Admiralty will be limited to 80 meters. This was revealed by the government in detailed plans for the project. The plot has been originally designed by the government on community use, but the authority decided to allow commercial development and compensate for the loss of office space in Central. The development of density 2 sites near the ferry terminals has been scaled back dramatically, creating a shortage of office space. The former head of investment Hong Kong, Mike Rouse, just published a book in 2003. He warned then the Chief Secretary Donald Tsang has steered clear the Harvard Fest controversy and is threatened to become very nasty. Mr. Rouse writes that at the time, rounding up to 100 million Hong Kong dollars series of big names concerts was becoming entangled speculation over 2007's chief executive election, in which Mr. Zhang, then the Financial Secretary Henry Tang, was seen like contenders. Following the launch of his book of Foreign Correspondent Club, Mr. Rouse retained as no individual should be blamed for this mistake made. He was censored by the Civilian Service Inquiry and fined for his role from doing the event. He later won the legal challenge against the decision. The International Monetary Fund has raised its economic forecast for Hong Kong. It's predicted that the territory's economy will shrink 2% this year, but grow by 5% next year. That's 1.5% point higher than its previous estimation. The IMF says the improved economy could produce a sharp rise in property and stock prices. It may step needed to take to prevent assets principal from spiraling higher. The government welcomed IMF's latest agreement on assessment, saying that it's fair and balanced. The Financial Secretary John Tang says the government would continue to support on the economy and business until economical recovery was firmly established. Some international news now. The UK Conservative Party has apparently scrapped the plans to hold a referendum on European Union's Lisbon Treaty after Czech President Varoufakis becomes the EU last leader to ratify it. The Shadow of Foreign Secretary William Hague says what had happened today means no longer possible for a referendum on Lisbon Treaty. Tory leading David Cameron will be formally announced on Wednesday about the policy on Conservatives will take on the treaty if they win the next general election. The treaty aims at boosting Europeans' role on global foreign affairs. The post-European Council President and also changes ways member states vote. It could now come to force as early as December. Former Bosnian Serb leader Radovan Karadzic has made his first appearance at the War Crimes Tribunal in The Hague to ask for more than time to consider his case. Karadzic, who is representing himself, has defiantly argued for a further 10 months to spare his defences. This has forced the judge to again adorn proceeding while they decide what to do with Karadzic's persistent boycott. He's now facing 11 charges of genocide, war crimes and crimes against humanity related to 1992 to 1995 Bosnian War, including one over 43-month siege of Sarajevo and the 2 massacres in Srebrenica. He denies all the charges. British mercenary Simon Mann has been pardoned for his part in an attempt to overthrow the government in Equatorial Guinea. The ex-SAS officer was jailed for 34 years in July last year for helping a plan to coup of a tiny West African country. President Teodoro Okonuma says this was a freed man, a friend of ex-Prime Minister Basil Stacher, the sons of Mark Stacher, for compassionate reasons. The Estonian was originally arrested with another 78 people, mostly former soldiers, when the aircraft arrived in the airport in Zimbabwe capital Harare in March 2004. China has given a green light on Walt Disney to build long-awaited first theme park on mainland in China after decades of negotiations. The announcement of a deal, which has been one of the biggest foreign investors in China, come less than 2 weeks before US President Barack Obama makes his first official visit in China. Some other US news is that people has been voting in a number of states and local elections in the United States, including 2 gubernatorial polls of correspondents say they could serve as an indicator of how voters feel about President Barack Obama's policies. A result was one of those races. Election of a new governor in state Virginia gives a strong lead to Republican candidate Robert McDonnell. And finally tonight, the operation on the oil rig that's been spilling on the East Timor Sea for Australia for 10 weeks says the leaking has been plugged. A major fire on structure has broke out on Sunday, has been brought under control. Officials says the PTTEP Australia Asia, Thailand's national petroleum exploration company, set a mix of heavy mud and brine pour out into the well and finally stopped the leak. The blaze has started when the workers were pouring the mud into the hole, then has been leaking estimately 400 barrels oil a day since August 21st. The oil sticks from the rig, 250 kilometers off Australia's northwest coast, now stretch across thousands of kilometers of remote ocean, giving a rise to fears of an environmental disaster. Indonesian says last week was 1,000 of dead fish and clumps of the oil has been found drifting near the coastline. And that's the evening news for now. We'll have more on the world news tonight at 8. For now, bye-bye.